So there's no public because I
No.
Well done. Thank you. Paula, apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Davis, Councillor Draver and Councillor Shaver.
Thank you very much. Members will also be aware that Councillor Willett is no longer a town councillor.
I propose we accept those apologies.
Yeah. Always accepted. Thank you. Declarations of interest, received declaration of any personal or prejudicial interest.
Just my usual one, just in case we ever have accounts. Which might get to decide something of value to the community or of interest.
It's a bit of a comedy now, isn't it, that you say that and we all laugh.
Well, I just think it's, I have to play a stoic line on it, but I do think sometimes.
Thank you, Robin. Noted. Item 3, to read the minutes of the planning committee held on the 19th of August. You've all had a copy. True record. Thank you. Please have a show of hands, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 4, Buckingham neighbourhood plan, availability plan, Buckingham neighbourhood plan to receive any update. Just to say at this moment, we're still in regulation 14, the consultation is coming to an end soon. And then once all the comments been taken on board, we can then move forward eventually to regulation 16, at which point it virtually becomes per to developers. They can't put in speculative applications while regulation 16 is running. Just to report, last week we had the 36th meeting of the neighbourhood plan working group and all public consultations. That one was in the library. Thank you for everyone who helped at that. And just to say that tomorrow, Anthony will be representing us online together with Steve for an online meeting between our town planning consultants and Buckinghamshire Council. They're coming back for a second bite, responding to our points raised at our first meeting. That will be tomorrow morning. Any questions on the town plan, Robin?
Well, just to say, I think we should minute our thanks to everyone who's everyone who's involved in the town plan, including the Buckingham Society. I think we can't minute our thanks enough, and it's been a difficult one. On the Buckinghamshire plan, in light of all the changes, it would be useful at some point to us to establish what their time frame is around delivering the Buckinghamshire plan, because they never intimated that it was going to be done very quickly, and there may be a disjunction between the Buckinghamshire plan and the NPPF, which could be assumed. So I think it might be worth us, as it's on the agenda, proposing chairman, just to write to them and ask them what their anticipation time.
They did mention that in my last meeting with them, the minutes of which I can't currently find, but I'll ask them again tomorrow.
That's one of the purposes of the meeting tomorrow, Robin. Thank you.
I kind of propose that we ask that question.
But we are asking a question. That's one of the purposes of the meeting tomorrow. That's.
In which case, that'll be another period of time afterwards. So if that had agreed action, whether you're meeting them tomorrow or not, it's still.
I had already have that information, but I can't find it in my notes currently. I'll report back as soon as I can find it.
Yeah.
If I can't find it imminently, I'll ask them tomorrow.
Just to follow up on that, Chairman, if there's anything significant that is discovered between Anthony and Steve tomorrow and Catherine, whoever attends that meeting, could we have a note to the effect of what they actually say, so that we can consider that against all other considerations we need to do as we wind up one plan into another plan into the other, because I think having the view would be a really good thing to understand.
So an email round, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's something we need to discuss at a future meeting, that's fine, but just so we understand it.
We have a note round, emails or something.
Because to be absolutely clear, this is part of the ongoing Buckingham neighbourhood development plan draft procedures, and Steve and Anthony will be reporting back to the next working group, which will be in the next couple of weeks. The working group will then report to the council.
But it does say item 4, Buckinghamshire local plan.
Yeah, that's what the meeting's about, how our neighbourhood plan and the local plan are going to work together. And hopefully some more days.
I'll leave it with you, Chairman, that
Hear what you're saying.
you discuss with the Vice Chairman or whether we need to discuss that because it's either good, bad or indifferent. We need to understand it so that we know what we're talking about.
What I was trying to say, we don't want to rock the boat because we have set procedures in place which we are following, and this was agreed by the council
No,
January last year. We're now 19, 20 months into the.
no, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else on that? Thank you. No, North Bucks Parish's planning consultant received a verbal report from Councillor Ralph on the meeting held on 18th of December. Have these gone to everybody, these papers?
We're here now.
Yeah.
In our folders.
In your folder, there are papers on that.
Thank you, Chairman. The majority of the meeting was taken up at the latest get together and mainly talked about new town development and the NPPF consultation. In fact, I think all colleagues there were quite exercised on what it all meant and wanted to discuss it at some length. In essence, the NBPPF are going to go along the Buckingham the Buckingham Council response to the consultation, but there was a number of points raised which were of particular interest. A chap called Keith Wallace, who represents Adstock, proposed a motion which sought to include in any response by the NBPPF to the NPPF a more granular way of assessing housing number targets for Buckinghamshire by considering the 4 areas of Buckinghamshire individually rather than a collective average. The thrust of his argument is that the government is seeking to enhance affordability of houses by adjusting supply versus demand, thus reducing the ratio of median house price to median income, and by increasing the supply of houses. And that's, that's fairly classic basic economics. The more there is of an item, the cheaper it will be, all other things being equal.
Yeah.
And he argues there are better ways of proceeding which would result in a more equitable outcome. The details of his motion and the background paper is included, which I sent to Catherine for distribution to committee members, which are in your folders, because there's quite a lot of writing in there. Interestingly, NPPF doesn't mention water supply. And in the South East, this is going to be a significant problem. This was raised by more than one member over the longer term, because we're not talking about next week, we're talking about decade and 2 decades and so on. Secondly, and this is Pat Hardcastle, who was very interesting, suggested that housing and development by design traditionally have been predicated on keeping occupants warm, keeping people warm. And in the future, this need will be designed to both keep people cool, warm in winter, but cooler in summer. Because if we're going to get higher temperatures, suddenly the design doesn't quite fit the environment, which I thought was a good piece of thinking. And he also reckons that keeping people cooler feeds very much into increasing the tree canopy over development, because typically they can reduce the temperature by 3 to 5 degrees, and therefore this is a way of design. But then this is not just houses, this is actually development as a whole need to be designed with that in mind. It's very good.
Excellent.
Going on to other things, there was no update on the Buckinghamshire Council local plan. We did spend a lot of time on the NBPPF talking about the consultation. We did mention that the Rosefield Solar Farm it had just been announced there was a possible reduction in size by about 40%. I think everybody's seen that in the paper now and that sort of thing, which is interesting. There were some cynical eyebrows raised at how flexible is 40%, but hey. And this is something that Pat's talked about, Pat Hardcastle, which I agree with very much. He pointed out the importance of designing infrastructure so that the land equivalent value of a solar farm should be greater than 100%. And this is the point where you don't build solar panels so close to the ground you can't use the ground. You build them high enough so there is a secondary use underneath. It can be growing crops, it's been done, grazing and so on. So if you take that land before it has a solar panel on it and say that's 100% usage, and then you put the solar panels on top and you say that is 100%, by lifting it up, you might get 30% plus the 100%. So it's greater than 100%. It's what I used to call sweating the assets. Yeah. And I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
Again, partly by time and because there wasn't much, there was nothing fresh on the Shenley Park development, Salden Shades, anything that Milton Keynes were up to particularly. And although people nodded about the Oxfam Arc, nevertheless, there was nothing fresh to say about it, but there is this feeling that hasn't quite gone away. You know, we did at one point think it's gone, but I suspect it isn't. And that was the whole of it. Subsequent to the meeting, Pat Hardcastle said he would go away and write up some notes. And lo and behold, he produced them very quickly. I checked with him, he's delighted that everybody has copies, and so you can read his ideas at leisure. Some of it's a repeat of what I mentioned here. Yeah.
It's not named, so.
It's marked as North Bucks Paris Planning Consortium. So that was Hardcastle's what I wrote. Yes. So quite a bit in the old folders tonight, but I thought I don't think I could reasonably have placed it down to a sensible oral report. I've stopped now.
Thank you, Andy. To you, Andy, sorted.
Yeah, thank you.
Just one thing, other thought, Robin, was mention made at the meeting of this proposed new town in the Milton Keynes M1 corridor, 10,000.
In passing, Chairman, it was mentioned, but there was nothing significant. As far as I could see, it was because there was lots of, dare I say, idle chatter, you know, off the record chatter, and it came up very marginally, but there certainly wasn't anything formally minuted or anything like that, and nobody seemed to have any particular knowledge of it beyond what whispers in the wind have been doing.
Yeah, obviously if it did happen, it would probably change the Milton Keynes city consultation, which we took part in.
Absolutely. And also, I think I saw today somewhere where there was a question that in line with mayoralities and other changes to local government, it might be that Milton Keynes and Buckinghamshire Council might be looped together to look at larger planning developments. Yeah, I heard. Well, that's what I'd heard, you see, today. So I thought, well, there seems to be an awful lot up in the air or going up in the air.
Thank you, Andy. Robin.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. You mentioned the devolution proposals, which was published, and the government seeking not only Milton Keynes and Buckinghamshire to work together properly, Bedfordshire and whatever, to actually take strategic decisions across the piece, which about these things, which I would imagine that would be out of that decision if there was going to be a new whatever it would come out of that meeting. It won't come out of it will come out of that. Although there was a statement made where there was the first time in a generation, it has been made statements around the possibility of building and invested in sewage and drainage and reservoirs. So what that means, of course, only time will tell. There's only limited few places you can put a reservoir. And when you put a reservoir in, I can remember the discussions in the 70s after the drought, when they put some new reservoirs in, that land was flooded, and it gets as contentious as not having the water. So I'm sure that would be as easy going as anything else. So there is some mention about it, but I think that there was some remarks have been made about looking at sewage works and upgrading them to cope with stuff. There's got to be a positive. What that comes out like, only time will tell. But we are only a limited time into a journey, and I expect that will come out in some other consultation. But I'm glad you mentioned the devolution, Anthony, because it looked an interesting discussion. I can imagine that it would be real fun to go and sit and watch those meetings and see the interactions and the fondness built up between all parties based upon the historical precedent which has been set up since 1996. I should imagine that would be the first time there'd been a grand meeting of the tribes of Buckingham since 1996, and when Milton Keynes actually became a unitary and now a city. So I should imagine that would be standing room only.
Thank you, Lord. Anything else on those? In that case, maybe move on to planning applications. Right, we start off with from number one on the list, the Old Market House, 3637. What was Prezzo, now May Mediterranean. This is what was Black Pepper. They've moved out of Cornwall's Meadow into the building, and you'll all be aware that they put new signage up without giving permission. So this is a retrospective application. They were apologetic. They hadn't realised they needed permission because they're only replacing like for like, and they wanted to stay good neighbours. We, in fact, reported this to enforcement about 3 months ago. It's now come up before you tonight for everyone's approval. Can we start with Carolyn? Buckingham Society happy with it, and the planters?
Yes. Ed Grimsdale was very keen to point out that it's a mock Tudor building, not perhaps quite as old as first seems. I can supply a photograph from the 30s, which shows it in a rather sorry state. But it is an iconic building actually within the centre of Buckingham. There's no doubt about it. And looking at the signage and various other things that they've done, we actually have no objections. We think it's not out of keeping with the whole area. Our only regret is that it is retrospective. And yet again, we find ourselves, people do retrospective applications. Sometimes they're all right, like this, but it would be so good to be able to discuss with them before how it might affect the area. So having said all that, we have no objections.
Thank you, Karen. Anyone else in the comments? I will just add that when we were doing the accessibility check a couple of weeks ago, we did go into May just to check, wheelchair access, etc., etc. Nothing has been changed inside. It's exactly as it was, front and back. So, Martin?
I thought they had some.
They will be responded to.
Switch it off. Switch it off. Oh, no, that's not gonna help.
That part of it here is not going to have these issues.
Is incorrect.
It just locked itself on.
He's filling out the door.
I could do that without moving my lips.
Robin in stereo.
Martin?
I thought they had some coloured uplighters on the front of it, or was that just for one event or something?
I think you have to colour bulbs around.
They have a string of balls on the wall. I think you can call it festoon lighting. If
All right,
yes.
Tightened up.
Next time I'm aimlessly wandering around town at night time, I will check with that. But as it stands, for the retrospective items in front of us, as for the planters and the and the signage, I don't have any objections.
Thank you. In that case, I propose no objections. Seconded by Anthony. All those in favour, show of hands, please. That's everybody except Robin. Thank you. Excellent. That's both applications, by the way, just for building and signage. Item number 3 then, number 1 Mallard Drive, has been a notice posted, household application, 1.5 storey rear extension. The notice has been up for, well, that's part of a month now, no neighbour comments. Anyone got any views on that? No, in that case, I propose we have no objections. Seconded by Anthony, all those in favour? Thank you, that's everyone except Robin. Item 4 is another retrospective application, although outside the conservation area. This is up on Page Hill, household application for conversion of existing garage space to office, replacing the garage. Catherine and I raised this, in fact, a year ago now. Photographed it in August, reported it in September. It's taken that long to come before us, but at least we got it before us. Because interestingly, the house behind it on Page Hill, that's at Hilltop Avenue, they had to apply for permission to do exactly the same thing and pay the money, so.
Yeah.
So, anyone have any comment on that? No, in that case, I propose no objections. Seconded by Anthony, all those in favour? Thank you, that's. Item 5, this is a Ring Road garage in Gorkett Road. There's no notice up yet, although it was validated on the 10th of September. This is an extension to existing workshop, and this is specifically to do with electric vehicles. So looking very much to the future.
What do you think?
The planning application looks very straightforward. There's no biodiversity net gain requirement, because it has a de minimis exemption, as they call it.
It means it's too tiny to be bothered.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any comments on this?
Said that, 'cause
I made a note of 2 things here, which I thought John might have picked up on, solar panels and grey water recycling.
I may have done if I'd read it in that much detail. Which is correct.
Yeah, I think possibly they have, just looking at plans, I think they do have skylights in the roof, which may or may not make it possible to have solar panels. Are there such things as see-through solar panels? Which
No.
You can work around them, and if you put them in as panels, you can work around.
So I think that what's before you tonight is would members wish to have some nod towards solar panels and grey water collection, even though it's a commercial building rather than.
No. It should be that.
Sure.
So you're saying no, you don't think we should, or?
No, I think we should worry about it, really. I'm not too fussed.
Okay. Lisa, any question?
Oh, no, so it's just grim fancy, so, yeah.
Okay, Anthony.
It just strikes me, it would be slightly ironic not to have solar panels if the purpose is to deal with electric cars. Perhaps I'm in that sort of mood tonight, I don't know. But I mean, can we say it would be nice to see?
No objection.
I understand the grey water thing.
Yeah.
But
So in that case,
Yeah.
no one else has. Jane,
Just going to say, do we know that they don't already have solar panels somewhere else around there?
not mentioned in the application.
No, but I mean, in other parts of their buildings up there, it's quite a big estate.
I've not
isn't it?
seen it.
Yeah, anyway.
Right, in that case, I would say no objection, but we would like to see solar panels and grey water recycling.
yeah, that's,
Yeah. Second that,
yes.
thank you. All those in favour? Thank you.
You tried charging a car solar panels.
This next one is Holloway Drive up on Page Hill, which backs up against Holloway Spinney, obviously. No planning notice yet, although it was validated on September 16th. Class holder application for a single-storey front extension and porch. You will all hopefully have read Catherine's notes on this. The main thing is there's a very handsome maple tree in the front garden, which is very close. It'd be even closer if they bring the front of the house forward. fire exit that was in the kitchen is going to be blocked up, so if there is a fire, you have to go through the kitchen to get out of the house. And also, as Catherine's pointed out, there is a street scene, and that number 24 and 22, its neighbour, are essentially the same design, and this would change that. Karen?
No objection. Mentioning the tree in relation to Pat Hardcastle's view that trees can help cool a building. Maybe this is a good example, but it is very close, and we think probably an application will follow to lop it or even dismiss it, which would be a pity. But we don't really have any objection. I think it is a building regulations and neighbour problem.
There is actually no tree checklist with the application. So it's a maple tree. We lost 3 beautiful maples in Hilltop Avenue last year, you remember?
I mean, this business, I actually know something about this, I think, which is that the maple trees, don't they have invasive roots? Because I know in our part of Page Hill, people have been having problems with, whatever it is, houses cracking, and then maple trees get blamed and then they get chopped down. So whatever that means in this particular application, I would see the maple trees being a bit of a disaster waiting to happen in any case.
Yeah, well, there's nothing about it asking for the trees to be removed. in the application.
No, I wouldn't suggest it. But I'm just saying they are apparently
It's the
dangerous.
insurers who don't like maples, of course.
Well, the owners don't seem to like their houses cracking either, so I don't know.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, Chairman, that the insurance company won't be thrilled with having a maple. If they're going to put an extension, then insure the building, might be an issue there.
Karen?
I believe it is a field maple, which is rather different to a large specimen that lays there. And it can, of course, be cut down to form a hedge, which is already there. So there would be acceptable ways of dealing with it.
They have an evergreen hedge, which is about 18 inches thick. And I would say the trunk diameter of the maple is about 8 to 10 inches. It's a big tree.
Okay.
And I mean, it looks to me as though the foundations of the extension would cut the root run.
And the other point about trees, not just the cooling shade they provide, we're also being told that trees help prevent flooding by sucking up some of the moisture.
That's tricky.
We're in favour of trees.
The problem is it's not a planning issue. The front extension is fine, etc. The problem is having a root barrier when building it, so building regulations. And also the other trouble that Councillor Morgia said is about the different, I forget what they call them now, base levels not being built at the same time, and they're actually disconnected. So therefore, if there's any movement on one, it makes the two can move independently and therefore cause an issue. But none of those are planning issues as such. I don't like the idea because it changes the street scene quite a lot, and it comes out into their front garden, which will also lose rainwater runoff, etc. Together with the tree and 2 different substrate levels that they will be put on, I don't think this is a good idea for that particular house.
Thank you.
Yeah, I second that.
Anyone else who wants to comment? Right, in that case, I'm going to propose that we oppose this on the grounds of the fire exit being blocked up in the kitchen. The street scene is going to be spoiled by bringing forward that house, and also that we have concerns over a mature maple, which is in this our climate change emergency time. We try to save all the trees we can in Buckingham. We do not want to see the potential loss of this tree, which could either be caused by building works or by insurers later asking for it to be done. Seconded by Anthony. All those in favour? That is everyone except for thank you very much.
I think there's a minimum distance between trees and buildings as well.
Yeah.
Right, amended plans, this is back to our old friend, land between 38 Morton Road and the old police station. This amendment includes, 2 more trees at the front. And it's about soft landscaping. What is interesting, the ecology officer at Buckinghamshire Council has said that she is concerned about the Forestry Commission enforcement site, their notice on site, and she feels uncomfortable providing comments and questioned if I should be providing them due to the situation we're in on this site. This has been our position before, but we've been uncomfortable about commenting on this because of this outstanding enforcement notice, which if it's not complied with, is a criminal act. Members may wish to comment on this or just leave our previous response. It has been John first.
Well, relevant to the maple tree we were just discussing, we want our trees back. Basically, and no. So repeat, no.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caroline.
Well, yes, but we think the amendments are tinkering, so completely irrelevant, really. We still continue to object to the design of the houses, which have no chimneys, and they certainly don't fit into the street scene. So that's just sort of the side of the way. Because yes, the forestry enforcement notice appears to be in place. It doesn't seem to have gone away. What we query is, have the council, the planning department, been in touch with the Forestry Commission? Because surely, given the situation, they must have asked or should have asked for an update. And I'm surprised, we are surprised that we haven't actually seen anything in writing from them querying the, alerting the forestry notice, these constant applications. And it is sort of left in limbo. That was what I asked.
Well, the planning officer dealing with this, she will be aware of this because this letter from Emma Foster is to her. To Emma Mother, who's the case officer.
Yes.
So
but, I mean, you'd have thought it would be dismissed instantly. And why, like so many other applications, why sit on it when there's so obviously many material considerations for refusing it?
So, anyone else? Any comment to this? So what I propose is that we don't change our position on this. We continue to oppose it.
Yeah.
Everyone agreed, seconded by Anthony. All those in favour? Thank you. That's everyone except Robin. Excellent. And the last planning application we have tonight was for a certificate of lawfulness for proposed 6 bedrooms HIMO at 25 Bernardine's Way. There's already 2 in this neighbourhood, 19, which is close by, we've dealt with recently. It's a conversion from C3 dwelling house and internal operations, lot conversion, construction of rear dormer. It would be 3 single bedrooms and 3 double bedrooms, meaning a total of 9 people. There have been a lot of objections from neighbours. There's 8 in all, and amongst those is an objection. I'm just finding it. Objection from the Verney Park Management Company. You might remember we had a representative came and spoke to the last planning committee in the public session about this. They're very unhappy about what's been happening there, making the point that there's now going to be 3 HIMOs in this courtyard area. The parking is getting worse and worse. He also makes the point that a 6-bedroom property requires 3 parking spaces, but there's only 2 designated to this property. What is it? 2 specifically marked. It's first come, first served in the parking court. 1 undercover and 1 in the open. Other neighbours have pointed out work has already started, so it should be retrospective. Some claim there's a breach of covenant 4, that the houses should not be used for any property for any purpose other than a private dwelling. But Catherine, I think we pointed out that's not enforceable.
No, it isn't. If it had been a planning condition that was translated into a covenant in the deeds, yes, we could argue on that. But as it isn't a planning condition, it's only in the deeds, so it's not a planning matter.
Oh, dear. What's the point of it then?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Right, obviously, there is no planning notice on this because it's,
It's a CPL.
CPL, but
So, I mean, I'm amazed that the neighbours knew, frankly.
yeah, well, eight of them do know, and they've all written. They are all immediate neighbours. We're not talking about people who live streets away or in a different town. Mainly it's parking they're concerned about, and being family oriented properties, these,
Yeah,
young children are around,
yeah,
et cetera,
absolutely.
et cetera.
Family home.
So, over to you, members. Anthony.
Apart from the cars, which I think are an increasing problem as you have more and more HMOs in a restricted area, is the question of the number of refuse bins. You've got potentially 9 people, that's 18 bins. I appreciate some of the doubles could share, but in the worst case scenario, you're talking about 18 bins. It'd be a fight to get in the place because you'd be surrounded by bins, everything else. But certainly it's street scene deterioration really with car parking and bins.
Yeah, they do make a point, some of the objectors, that there is already a waste, some of the waste bins on the street. On the other IMOs, they leave bags out because they've not enough room in the bins, and the bags aren't collected by the refuse operatives, and then you pick up the bins. Lisa.
Thanks, yeah, because there is something, I don't know if I read it on the Shire Council's website, but the lid of the bin should not be raised or they won't take it. So if the lid of the bin is raised, then they can refuse to take it. So that's apart from the fact of not having bags outside.
Right.
Yeah, we try and squish us down, put my walking stick.
Just going back to Catherine's point, it's nothing, not the covenant, but the planning. When it was approved as a middle class. Oh, I love middle classes. As a sort of private residential estate, not a sort of a.
Some of it is affordable. Some of it is terraced, some of it's detached.
Yeah.
So it's family home.
Well, it was, yes, I mean, it was university land, it was their car park, Francis. And they decided that they would sell this off because the initial planning application indicated that they had to provide car parking elsewhere on Burnley Park.
Yeah.
So, it's not that old. And it's actually, they've got some very attractive decorating features in the architecture. And they've got this humongous green slap bang in the middle where the children can play around the go train. So
there's nothing in that gives them a sort of a, it wasn't planned, to be like this, it would be multiple occupancy, it was planned to be individual dwellings, there's nothing.
Have invented the notion of that.
No.
I mean, people always.
Well, they wouldn't mention it in the planning regulations.
Always share houses and flats.
Yeah.
But it's now been formalised in this time, where you have, the regulations are very strict about things like electrical safety and gas.
So the original planning regulations didn't ban HMOs because they didn't exist, but they wouldn't have allowed it either. They would have stated that it's for
they probably
domestic.
need to state that this was a housing estate for families.
Try and find something back in there.
Yeah, it was 2002, for everyone's information, that these were built.
Just information, it might be Caroline can remember. There was no HMO licensing in the Vale area years ago, and there was an ongoing issue. There's no relevance to this, it's just background that it was this council that asked for licensing, it asked for Article 4 directive, and out of that we managed to get licensing for HMO, but there was no regulation in the north of the Vale. So the system is what it is. As the chairman said, everybody says this development when it was conceived, no one knew that HMOs existed. It was something that happened in University Downs. And in Oxford, they have Article 4 directives, which are where they actually to sort of decide where the accommodation is going to go. And it came from the growth of student accommodation in the town centre at the time, because the university hadn't got accommodation and they were concerned about it. So where we go with this, the long term, I think we need to discuss what an HMO means for us, and it's a licensing thing, not a planning thing. And it is becoming, I expect everybody here probably accepts they are becoming more emotive, although now they are very much people who cannot afford to live in any other
Well,
accommodation.
that's the other thing, yeah.
So I think the chairman, it was taken up in the plan, wasn't it? HMOs, taken up in the neighbourhood plan, so.
That makes no special guidelines for houses and hotspot provision.
Yeah.
Parking, so the parking is as the original number of bedrooms. And they're not obliged to provide extra if they double the number of bedrooms by getting rid of all the upstairs dining room and what have you, so.
I mean, I want to comment on the actual application, just the fact that that's what the history was. I think happening divided us all fine.
So bad news for 25.
We want something, though it doesn't feel like it.
Well done.
John.
I think it's reaffirmed something we talked about before. You know, our town needs a special policy with regards to HMOs and student accommodation.
Yeah.
Because I want the students to be here and I want them to be accommodated well and everything else. But I think we need to take into account that there are other people over the town too, and that various needs need to be balanced between all those communities. We just need a policy, but we will get anything in the Shire Council. I don't know, but we do need something. I don't know. I mean, you mentioned Oxford. Robin. I don't know whether something like that would be a fit. Maybe the university, perhaps this is an issue we should raise at the next point.
Absolutely.
You know, to discuss, you know, something along those lines, that we could collaborate with the university, you know, and find something that would manage this tension, because it's not, you know, if students are living there and they're putting out lots of rubbish because the bins are deficient and so on, it's only going to create community dissent. We don't want community.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is being addressed in the draft neighbourhood plan. And in fact, when we had a meeting 3 weeks ago with the university, again, it was addressed amongst other things about what the university intentions were. So it is going to be dealt with. Thank you.
Okay.
Martin is next.
Yes, thank you very much. Just one correction, John. I think we ought to be mindful that HMOs are being more and more used, maybe not by university people, but by just general people trying to live.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's just the way of the world at the moment. So, again, I'm not against HMOs, but in this particular instance, it's a confined area. It's a street that's been bent round, and that in itself needs special consideration because it's a confined area for those people all looking at each other, and outside of that, limited access and parking. So with the parking and the bins and just generally being a multi-occupancy property in that confined courtyard type environment, I'm going to object to it.
Robin, do you want to say something?
No, I'm not going to comment on the application, just to say in support of what Martin said. The situation when we first looked at HMOs was a different situation than we're looking at today. We shouldn't overcompensate. This is a university issue now, it's a community issue. I think as the chairman said, separately to this application, it's being looked at in the neighbourhood plan. I think what we all probably need to do is to read the legislation on Article 4, which is quite difficult, and HMOs quite difficult. I think, and maybe it's something that we could get some advice on what is the current thinking, because it is complex, and all these things are emotive and upsetting. But I think understanding why we are where we are for everybody, including oneself, wouldn't be a bad thing. Because just when you think you understand it, you realise you actually don't. And Article 4 is a hugely different thing to licensing, and they actually council has to put money into doing Article 4, whether licensing takes money out, that's why they took the licensing. My memory of the discussion, which was 10 years ago, so you have to forgive me if I'm a little bit loose on it.
Thank you, Robin. No one else wants to speak. I'm going to propose we oppose this application on the grounds of insufficient parking, insufficient waste bin arrangements in the context of it being a courtyard setting. Also I don't know, overdevelopment is the right word, but certainly overcrowding in this courtyard setting. Can we use that?
You want to make a consideration of the big red dormer.
There was a big red dormer. We'll look over the properties. Yeah, on Buckingham. Is everyone happy with that? Yes, so Anthony, second that, and all those in favour? So on except Robin, thank you very much. That's the end of the planning applications. We've got just some tree consultations that have been dealt with. 55 Nelson Street, removal of 5 conifers. Hill House, Castle Street, reduction of use, which everyone agreed to. And then for information only, Buckinghamshire Council have registered no objections to a 3-pole T off the existing overhead National Grid power lines connecting to the solar farm at Manor Farm in Bolton Road. It's a 40-metre run. We noted it. Buckinghamshire Council has said no objections. So
Yeah.
That's just what everyone's noticed. As Catherine pointed out, you can't put a solar farm and no way of connecting it to the national grid. Just a couple of planning decisions you'll see there. Interestingly, the Holt, number 7, the Holt, which we had opposed on the grounds that the wall they were going to build would be impacting on the light into the kitchen of the next door neighbour. Planning officers come back, said we acknowledge the representations about loss of light impact to number 9's ground floor windows. However, these 2 windows either do not serve primary habitable rooms or are likely not the only window to the room. Hence, what in this instance, while it's acknowledged it would be a loss of light, harm is not considered significantly detrimental to refuse. That's something to note for the future. You will recall that we've only just looked at land adjacent to 73 Morton Road, which is the Rockwell site. One of the things we were concerned about was the loss of trees because of the new drive entrance, and the proposal to fell 3 trees to enable width for new access has been withdrawn. So we don't know where we are with that now.
We don't have to full council after we spend the time looking at the variations of condition.
I'm mindful, Carolyn, that you need to leave by it. We're doing well at the moment.
Yeah, this is fine. Yeah.
You're okay. Right. Appeals. There's 3 lots of appeals here. 55 at Welsh Street. The appeal against refusal of refurbishment and alterations to the roofing, walls, flooring, windows, doors, interior and external finishes, and a flood barrier have been dismissed by the inspector. Quite interesting. I'll be very, very brief. He said no to replacing the blank windows, the dummy windows, which it's presumed were filled in during window tax days. He said no to the lifting of the roof tiles. The undulation should remain. It's a visual illustration of age, authenticity and evolution. He said no to the removal of polythene back plasterboard because it put historic fabric behind it at risk. He said no to the opening up of floors, insulation and other services, again because it would put historic fabric at risk. He noted discrepancies between drawings and heritage statements, which would cause less than substantial harm to heritage assets. He noted a bat survey was needed for the coach house. One was provided for the old house, but not for the coach house. And coming to his conclusion, he said some of the proposals may benefit the house, but I cannot issue a split decision as the appellants have requested. So I think probably they put too many eggs in one basket, and then they're going to have to go back and parcel everything up.
They already done it. That was 2022.
Yeah.
The list of 23 has all been passed by heritage.
So, right.
So it's not worked. although the flood barrier, I think,
Yeah, that is a concern. If that's been ignored completely because,
no, it was passed, but it wasn't. Don't think it's going to be adequate.
right,
Basically, they've got a terrace with steps that go down to the garden and they want
Oh,
to
yeah.
drop the flood barrier at the top of the steps.
all right. So it's just really so you know what the inspectors are sometimes thinking about when it comes to listed buildings.
That they're the wrong side.
722, members are advised an appeal against refusal of new signage on 22 Bridge Street, that's the Turkish barbers, that's been submitted. We originally were in favour of it, we thought it was an improvement on the estate agent that was there previously, but that 4 weeks response have already ended. And you're also advised about appeal against refusal of variation of condition on a high mow at 36 Chandos Road. We oppose that because the applicant claimed that our neighbourhood plan no longer had any weight regarding student accommodation, even though we have a policy on that came up. You'll probably all remember at the last planning committee. So those two are appeals are live at the moment. So if I may, item 8 Buckinghamshire Council matters, if we could bring item 8.4 forward, because Carolyn wishes to speak on this. This is the Buckingham Conservation Area Review consultation. You'll be aware that the county is carrying out a review and update of conservation areas throughout the county. They want comments on the Buckingham Conservation Area, which was designated in 1971.
Before my time.
And thanks to Buckingham Society who instigated that. It was last reviewed 15 years ago. The new appraisal will include a management plan which will provide up-to-date guidance on how to care for it, etc., etc., etc. Carolyn, I believe the Buckingham Society have had an executive meeting to talk about this.
Our chairman has had a meeting, or actually a consultation with the man involved, David, somebody or other. He, I have to say, is very cynical about conservation area, simply because of the lack of enforcement that has ensued over the past 20 years. The last review was carried out 20 years ago in 2004, and Ed Grimsdale and myself were heavily involved in that. Primarily Ed, who practically wrote it for Freya conservation officer at the time. At least they had a conservation officer. And I think it stood the test of time in terms of its content, but it is true that owners don't always take responsibility of listed buildings seriously. I think one exception might have been 55 Mill Street, but I'll leave that aside. But it is certainly true that enforcement doesn't happen automatically. Alterations of a detrimental nature are made to buildings within the conservation area. And I point immediately to the fort, which was a really interesting 30s building with 30s windows to match. And they arbitrarily overnight put great plate glass windows in. I remember being very cross about that, but it is in the conservation area and there was no redress to it. I think this is a case where we've talked about Article 4, or Robin has talked about Article 4 earlier. It's extremely difficult to put in place, but we absolutely support the notion of trying to get an Article 4 direction for our conservation areas. It is probably the only way that one can conserve some of the most important buildings in our town and police the fact that they don't deteriorate or are degraded in some way by such things as, dare I say it, plastic windows. I think those are our views, but we haven't, I have to confess, had a full meeting about it yet. We will do so.
Of course, the Buckingham Society is quite entitled to apply in its own right to the consultation,
Yes,
which I hope it will be doing. So,
Right.
it does end this Friday, September 27th.
Well, that's a pity because I'm going away tomorrow. Yes.
The alternative is that if members agree tonight, Steve would collate what's said at this meeting and put that in as part of the generic reply
Yes, and I think our chief concern is that we don't think it needs extending. It just needs better policing. And that is the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, it has worked well, hasn't it? Our policy has worked well, but there've been occasions, as you say, where,
Yes.
you know, developers or shopkeepers have just done their own thing. And,
Yes, there was a pair of.
you made the point earlier tonight about retrospective permission.
Yes.
It's already been done.
Yes, exactly.
Hard to undo. Yeah, Robin.
Yeah, thank you, Callum, for raising that. It's been my continent. I just looking at the actual conservation area map. You're right, 1971, 15 years later, it was updated. That's what I'm reading. Really, the conservation area is such a huge, was such a huge body of work. I remember the revised thing, I remember the work that went into it, I remember the conversations, and I do remember that how the boundary became about where it was as a large discussion. We seem to be, and it's the case that the rocket and fuel in the conservation consultation, but not with the length of time that we put into the last one, which was actually, if you look at the maps where you get to Morton Road and then you get down to West Street, quite where the end of it was, where it wasn't, Tindrick Road, where it goes down to Hunter Street, and where it expands into other areas such as Bolton Road, because we put Bolton Road in because of the architectural nature of those buildings being of significant, because they are, though they were originally council buildings, they are of a particular design, which got put into things. So this idea of sort of we can go down a certain route with it and leave Lannet Road. So I think that I expect you've still got the mapping. If you haven't, we can find it. I think it's important that we do have to sign it because the town has changed and it's changed rapidly since then. We've still got the Walrus complex and we've still got all the things which are in the conservation area, which perhaps we would like to change a bit. But we've had improvements, haven't we, Chairman, where a development came forward where the one cafe is, and it's much better to look at now than what was there before, one could say. So it is forward. So I'm pleased if they're going to look at that. If want any questions put to the officer, happy to take them on the conservation area. But I've got some points on the council to make. I can do that now or later if you want to.
You could do it later.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Just as a simple point of clarification for me, I'm just looking at it, overlooking your shoulder. And there's a whole consultation and lots of space for people to write in, but presumably what we're looking at now is approving the consultation, not actually answering all the questions.
Steve, as far as
There are 5 questions that we have been asked to answer, subjective questions.
Yeah,
For
I've seen
example, the first one is, what areas, spaces and buildings make Buckingham special to you?
It's on page 30.
That's right. So
So the position tonight is for, to agree on how these 5 questions are to be responded to.
all right.
The first,
Bearing in mind that the deadline of
is which slide?
extension of the clusters.
The first question is, what areas, space and buildings make Buckingham special to you? Conservation areas, so that I think we've more or less answered that by creating a conservation area.
Yeah.
See map.
See map, yep.
Please see map, Robin.
Would it be? I don't think we want to change anything about the statement that were made before. So there's some statement. I remember in conservation what made the building, and there was some work done on. We went down to Church Street, and there was things mentioned about the architecture of it. It's the nature of the architecture of the buildings which make Buckingham different to other areas such as Aylesbury, and always want to be different. And that type of thing, and also the mapping on the original area, I think was right. There was a lot of work done in the mapping, including other areas.
There was a modification which took this field down to the.
Yeah.
But I think that was the only one.
That was the only modification, but the mapping was right.
Yeah.
It took in that, so I think we ought to keep the mapping, just make sure they actually enforce it would be my view.
So we can fill in about what kind of special about history, heritage and historic buildings, the fact it's still an 18th century market town. You know,
Yeah.
which was able to be rebuilt after the fire, etc.
Yeah, well, it's-
I was just going to add that I think, as well as the architectural highlights and materials used that make Buckingham distinctive, actually what is so important is the layout of the street patterns. They have, and miraculously, to some people's detriment, but they have miraculously stayed as they were as a medieval town. And it is what makes you read Buckingham, is the legibility of its street patterns. You think of Aylesbury, which is completely illegible. And Buckingham has retained that very distinctive layout that makes it special.
Thank you. Second,
Just,
Martin.
yeah, just on that first question. Yes, the layout, but also it's, we have some historic buildings, you know, and everything that goes with that, but also it's the surrounding buildings and architecture and road layout, which combine together to give it
Its character.
and the whole bit.
Yep.
So when you add all of those bigger blocks up, you get then the conservation area.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yeah, I was just sort of pondering, we're coming up to the anniversary of the Great Fire. And in some ways, the Great Fire actually created the area in many ways. And whether one can tie that together, because one of the things I suspect is the case, we're all interested, we know about the conservation area, you know, some of the history. There are so many people who are new to Buckingham who I suspect are not really aware of conservation area or what it was and perhaps how it was formed. And I'm just wondering if there's something, when we're doing this, that we can then put in some sort of format so that the general population can have a better understanding.
John?
I'm a bit unclear about the Stowe Avenue box on the top left-hand corner. It is not coloured white. But obviously there are important buildings up there, you know, the gatehouses particularly, I guess you call them gatehouses. Arguably the rest of some of that road itself should be in the conservation area to link it in as well. And I think in several places that ought to be in the conservation area personally, but I think to get into that debate, it's gonna take the rest of the week to do that, I suspect. But can anyone clarify the Stowe Avenue
Yes,
box?
because it's a conservation area all by itself, Stowe Avenue, not two lodges.
You'll see on
Right
the
up to
map,
the archway.
you'll see on the map, it is shown as a separate
Yeah.
conservation area.
Oh,
With a big black line.
it goes within our parish.
No, it isn't.
What, the gatehouses are not in our parish?
The gatehouses are, but the avenue isn't most.
Oh, no, I know the avenue to track.
But no, the National Trust designated it themselves as a conservation area, so there are things you can't do in it.
Really good.
I don't know if there's any.
Jane? I'm sorry, Lisa was first. I apologise.
Just going on what, was it, I can't remember what you said about, making it more, like known for our newer residents. Yeah, and maybe something could be included in the welcome pack that we send out to new residents. Because we already send that out and it might be a nice touch to add that to it.
Thank you.
If I could just add, sorry, I mean, conservation areas are also covered in the draft neighbourhood plan. The key tonight is to answer these 5 questions.
Yeah, you know, they are 5 sort of questions, aren't they?
I was going to come to the neighbourhood of draft plan when we just, everyone had a quick word on these questions. Second question, what potential threats do you think Buckingham conservation area faces? John?
Lack of attention from the Shire Council.
That's what I said, Aylesbury.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would,
Martin?
well, I would say modern living, policing of the conservation area, and I think that wraps up. quickly for me. Yeah, modern living is a, you know, is a big push on conservation area.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Andy?
In retrospective of applications are not enforcing.
Yeah, policing.
Okay. Robin?
All five, buildings landmarks should be identified.
No, we're on
That's on
question two at the
two.
moment.
I was just
Yeah.
reading down the line.
Okay.
I'll leave that one then, nothing to do with everything else.
John, again?
Well, I mean, the old town was case in point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's slap bang in the middle of the conservation area. They broke the rules that they had conservation by putting up the lighting and everything else, and what's happened? Nothing. has happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it does take an awful lot of investigation, surely. Nothing has happened. So
It's a waiting of
that's
decision.
correct.
It is a planning application, waiting of decision. So,
Well, would it be through you, Chairman, on to, what's the threat to the conservation area? Not adequately resourced enforcement team.
that's what Martin.
Is that what you said, Mark?
Yeah, policing of it.
That's,
Is that what you meant?
that's fleshed it out, yeah.
Yeah, enforcement team,
Can we
because
move on to
they,
question three then? Are there opportunities to improve Buckingham conservation area's character and appearance? Are we happy with the town as is?
I would say that the floral decorations this year have been spectacular. I keep meaning to say
Yeah.
that.
That's it.
And they really have been extra good. And I do think that has brought the centre of Buckingham, which is largely conservation area, to life.
That's a good point, Joe.
Probably get rid of those awful signs that the county put up for Buck's sake. It makes me so irritated every time I see
they're
those.
ugly, aren't they?
Well, and also for Buck's sake, it's like you then think, oh, and you think, no, I'm not thinking that word. It's just so
I had a complaint about that,
stupid.
about the language bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So I'm not saying for this, but it's just, having street, whatever you might call them, signs. We did some ourselves once and they were lovely, all about the secret places in Buckingham and things like that. But these,
I haven't noticed those.
oh, well.
Oh, you got me mad.
I haven't either.
Martin?
So on the opportunities one, we got Buck's Law, haven't we, the app or something that takes people round.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing that, it's not an opportunity to improve, but it's already there to improve.
We're enjoying it, yeah.
Yeah, but it needs to be cited that, that's what we're doing. We also have trails around Buckingham,
Yeah.
which improves all of that.
Yeah. Good.
And just keeping it in its, conservation state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, and then
I've
Carol.
said this before, I think bunting always improves everything.
Charles.
If you put bunting up, everyone's
Flags, everything.
And also-
bunting.
Not 8 before bunting though.
Also, fairy lights as well, fairy lights.
Everywhere.
Carolyn.
Forgot what I was going to say.
Thought maybe the bunting of the fairy lights.
Fairy lights.
I'll come back to it.
Is that what your card said, John?
Listen, come back after this question. Would you like any building or spaces added to or removed from the conservation area? I think we're happy with where we are.
Yes,
That's up
absolutely,
tonight.
yeah.
Would that be
We don't
no,
want it
no
extended.
deviation from the current?
John,
Does it have to be contiguous?
so can you?
Does it have to be contiguous to conservation area? Because I think the houses at the top of Glenborough Road, those very high houses, there's about 5 of them terraces. I think deserve some attention.
On the old bridleway.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you.
And that's nowhere close to the where the boundary goes to. There's a bit of, obviously, that's under mitre and so on. Doesn't go up the hill.
Are they listed in their own right, or?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
What would be the form on that?
Well, first I check if they're listed, but see why you shouldn't have. I mean, you might have to settle for non-designated heritage asset status. But I think it might be worth it. How to take some photographs and try and convince somebody.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Yes, I would propose.
All good suggestion. Martin?
We have in the past in planning applications said that they would have some items which are just outside would have a detrimental effect on the conservation area. So as long as that's still in place, then we don't need to extend it to those ones, so they get a bit more leeway, but, you know, we've got the hardcore conservation area as such.
Yeah, it has exactly the same power as being close to a listed building, in fact, it's close to conservation.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, in my eyes at the moment, without going too much detail, that sort of covers most of the other ones that are just on the edge.
Karen, are you ready yet? Well,
No, sorry, I'm
okay.
really.
I'm going holiday.
John, very quickly.
Does it have to be buildings? I mean, I think the allotments in central town are wonderful, and long may they continue. Is there a way of making that conservation?
It's more open spaces.
Oh, yeah.
Probably only a bit far.
I think it needs contiguous what we. Well, yeah, I don't know, just a thought. I'm not an expert on this.
Colin?
I'm just looking at this here and we've got Bolton Road on it. Got the London Road on it. Am I looking at this mapping correctly? Have we not got Franciscan building in it?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't, well, I mean, that's the type of building
Yeah.
that it's got some history.
One of the assets.
It's one of the community assets in, I know it's being looked after and all that, but it is, who knows in 50 years' time what will be going on.
I have a feeling that it was looked at last review and rejected
Yeah.
because of the alterations that had been done to it.
I
So,
can't claim
but
responsibility
which
for
is
that, I
why,
don't install it.
which is why it's a building of noted local interest.
But the facade of it, and the front
So
facade
it's
of
taken
it,
care of.
you think it's taken care of. I know it's been looked after well, but
May I say, this is listed as a potential heritage asset in the.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
no,
So it's-
Along
I'm
with cattle
happy,
troughs and things like that, there are things that are a bit out of the box.
Yeah.
You know, like the cattle troughs,
Yes,
we've asked those to be listed as,
Yeah.
not listed, but made.
Yeah.
Heritage assets,
Yeah.
all these things are there, Anthony?
Open question, we touched on this at our last Buckingham Society planning meeting about colours of buildings, any restriction on colours within the conservation area, which could come under an Article 4 direction, of course, could do, because sometimes some of the colours people paint things are a trifle sudden, as the saying is. And I don't know whether, you know, we want to use something like an Article 4 direction, because that might be a sledgehammer to crack a walnut, but nevertheless, I wonder what colleagues think. Because I think we'd like to restrict it to a reasonable palette, wouldn't we?
I was walking past in the middle of the town where the cattle pens are, walking past, and then somebody's painted that almost gorgeous shade of fuchsia pink, which I'm sure you'd probably hate. But I thought for a little splash of colour amongst all that sort of lovely soft rare and some nice pink roses, which I always make Howard stop while I go, oh, these roses are so lovely. It's a bit sad, I know we go. But that door, I thought, I mean, I would never dare do it, but I thought, oh, that's so lovely, a little splash. It's a real splash of colour. But there is on the other, there is a blue painted house over on towards Nelson Street, which I think is a bit sort of ruins the whole area. So
you had a word today.
As I say, it's an open question.
Steve would like to say something.
But it may be useful to know that some years ago, when I was manager at Lloyd's Bank up the road, I had an enforcement officer turn up because we'd repainted the pink wall of this lower part of the building. Criticising the colour and so forth. And it was only when I went to the safe and found a photograph in the deed showing that we'd repainted it exactly the same as it was before, but it had faded, that they accepted that. And so they do appear to look at colour.
That's good.
That's amazing.
Right, then final question, are there any buildings or landmarks that should be identified as locally important? We already do that.
Yeah.
Old Town Hall, the White Hart, Latin House, the Old Market House. We've already got those in the neighbourhood plan as important local buildings.
We've got the hospital in another thing.
Yeah, that is one, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
job done.
That's the 5 questions. I'm just going to tell you what the neighbourhood working group has come up with, which is in the draft plan. It's under DH3 retrofitting in the conservation area. The proposals would result in considerable improvements to energy efficiency, carbon emissions and general suitability and longevity of existing buildings. That will be supported with significant weight attributed to those benefits. The first objective of Buckingham Town Council's Climate Emergency Action Plan is to reduce own demand, improve energy efficiency, and convert to renewable low or zero carbon technologies. This policy will encourage local residents to use deep retrofitting as a way to reduce their carbon footprint. Applicants who wish to make proposals for properties within the conservation area are strongly advised to use the methodology set out in the Architects Climate Action Network, which can facilitate low carbon setting. In December 23, the government changed permitted development rights around installing solar panels on buildings in the conservation area. This change relates only to solar panels, so not double glazing at the moment. So policy DH3 is still necessary to demonstrate wider support for retrofitting beyond this. And then finally, there was a note about reinforcing policies such as narrow yellow lines, smaller signage, etc., in the conservation area. So that's what has been put forward in the
Like the one by the library.
local plan. Well, we know the mess up that was made on Market Hill. Sorry, I missed out. 20% of total UK carbon emissions come from existing rather than new buildings, but heritage and architectural constraints can make this challenging, particularly for residents living in properties within the conservation area to make any changes, which we've heard tonight about Wells Street, of course. That is what has already been put before the public scheme.
And in terms of question 5 about the other buildings, there is a list in the draft neighbourhood plan of those that we're looking at, which you mentioned toxing earlier.
The 12 heritage assets.
Is it worth just mentioning that, belt and braces in this one as well?
Yeah,
So plus
that would be.
We can cross-refer to the draft neighbourhood plan, of course.
Yeah, I'll make that up.
Robert?
I'll just give you a brief, if that's done without a brief on the day I was privileged enough to go down to the new sixth form centre down Wells Street, to pass on a positive comment to the town council. They were very pleased that the town council supported the application and they're very happy to be down there. And I was, because I'm have quite a lot to do with the HCP, so they invited me down there. And they were very positive about it, and they are going to, I've put some information on social media, which I think we'll post a week back on the Buckingham What Matters now. And that's got some of the detail of how they want to engage, which is with community groups like Buckingham Society, like the Rotary, like whatever. They want to engage because they want to be a added part of the community now they're here, engage with other schools and whatever. So they want to be part of the community, not in the community, which I think is key. That was
Robert, can I just ask, what's this consultation on the conservation?
I said it you finished, but
No.
all right. I'll go back to that then.
Put this to a vote, etc. in agreement.
Oh, okay.
Right, we've had 5 questions. Everyone's talked about them.
Just a piece of information from our listener is that the number of houses are at the top are not listed.
Okay.
That's from Mary.
So then logically, we should ask the neighbourhood working group to include them in the heritage. Thank you.
Someone will need to formally respond to the consultation to do that. We can legally only take written feedback for regulation 14. So if the member wants to reply to the consultation in writing, by which they could email me, that would count. Actually, no, I beg your pardon, email office at buckinghamdc.gov.uk.
You could do that,
As a volunteer.
Could you do that, John? It's your suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, but we must do it the right way.
Yeah.
That would be great if you would do that.
Okay.
Ask me afterwards if you need clarification.
Thank you. So you've got the 5 questions that I think we've all answered around the table. If members are happy and agree to those, I'd suggest that Steve, Catherine and I just formulate the
Yeah.
consultation
Yeah.
response, so we have it for Friday.
Yeah.
And I think we can, Anthony, I can speak on behalf of the working group that this is following the same guidelines that we're working towards by including this new policy DH13. So,
Could I probably the other vote, Chairman, that we actually, I think it is a big issue, and I think that a little bit around the history of how we got here, the work that was done, mentioned by Caroline, about how we got the conservation area in place, the work we've done it, and this is following on from that, just to put it in a little historical context.
yeah, that's all going to be happening in the first question.
No, with the press release, that's what I was going to say about what we've done after it's done, so that people know that we're actually interested in it. That's why I want a bit of historical context in the press release. Also, it's good to say thank you to people who've done things in the past, but they've affected the future. And if Caroline would help with that, that'd be a good thing. Because if we're going to write about things that Ed's done, that's you're braver than I am, and Ed would just correct my grammar.
Would you be happy with that before we?
Well, in terms of what's on the agenda, that isn't on it.
Not tonight. I'm just thinking about preempting our response
Let's take that forward as a good idea to
a future meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you, Robin. We'll make a
I
note of
always think
that.
it's important to thank people.
Yeah, come to the next planning committee, we can do that. Thank you. So if members are happy, with that, thank you. If you could leave it to the 3 of us just to formulate the plan. Thank you very much, and Caroline, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay if you wish.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid I have to go.
we have a
There's
show.
only so much, so.
So, Steve's just asking for a show of hands. All those in favour?
Carolyn, there was some papers.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Obviously.
Yes, Steve. I'm completely happy to join.
Can I go back to what I thought I was saying?
Yeah, well, it's you're now anyway.
Yeah, anyway,
Information.
just for information, what I said there, if members wish to engage with them, please do. I think they'd be welcome. On the other thing, I will pass some information over to Catherine, some responses to written questions around the A421, which I think everyone's interested in. We won't discuss it now, but I'll give the response to Catherine and share for the next meeting, the response of the cabinet member, because we haven't had any information on the consultation on the A421, which I think is a big issue for Buckingham.
It's in the public domain.
It is, you can steal it, yeah, it's in the public domain, it is now and it was before. And the instance that Buckinghamshire Council had a very pleasant exchange around the MPPF, which is a falsity on words, and came to their conclusion, and it all went rather how it was expected to go, and everyone left, exactly how they arrived. So they gave a response to the
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
even though there was no paper served at the meeting, with any information to be able to make a decision about any context around the document or the basis of it, they managed to come to the conclusion that it was all bad based upon emotion and a few words, which isn't perhaps how we should do these things. I think we should do them by facts. And if you lose the argument, you lose the argument. At least you lose the argument about facts. On the other things about Buckingham, I am attending this week now, Growth and Infrastructure Select Committee, good reason. So if there's anything that you feel that I need to be bringing up at the Growth and Infrastructure Select Committee, other than what I will do, which will probably be lots, I'll be sat in the table for once and make that up. And lastly, I think on the Buckinghamshire Council issues, I think it might be mindful of us to start looking at some of the issues which, if you remember that in our conversations, we were informed as best we could be that work on the railway walk should be done by 2025. And I think it would be something that I would want to, if I was a town council, follow that up, because it was linked to, it is linked to planning, because it was linked to the Section 106 for the Chinchett Road development. And there's been quite a gap from spring to now that we haven't spoke about it. And that actually going forward with the money which was allotted to it, which we were assured has still been allotted to it, I believe was in the financial year. And as these things progress, I haven't seen any great activity down there. There may have been conversations with officers of the town council, but we are elected members of the town council, and I think it's important that the elected members know the planning issues around it, because there will be some planning issues. And I think it's important that the issues around any conversations to do with the progress of the case and the work to it should go to another committee. But I think the planning issues, in fact, there's been a huge silence around it. It would be quite regrettable, wouldn't it, if we got to the end of it and for some reason they hadn't done it all within time, the work hadn't been scoped out, and we missed the opportunity to do what this town council wanted, which was to get the railway walk as a cognitive part of to link the secondary school and that. So I'd like to hope that we'll do that at some point, bring something back here to discuss. I will clearly go and ask questions, but I'm not the town council, and I think if I was the town council, speaking for the town council, I think we should know whether there's any planning considerations for that. Also, I noted at your last council meeting, speaking here as a Buckinghamshire councillor, I wasn't quite sure what the issues around the planning may be and may not be to do with the Lace Hill site. I think it might be worth clarifying what was actually meant, because nothing was actually said. But I think that the inference was there was going to be a future application. I think what I took from it, although it wasn't in the wording.
So we're talking about the medical centre?
Yeah, no word of application was mentioned, but everything what was said there, I draw a conclusion would mean that there would have to be an application. So I think that it might be worth us knowing what it is, because the influence that you'll have to consider an application in time. And I listened carefully to what Mr. Gabriel said, and it looked to me like, speaking as a Buckinghamshire Council, it was on a very tight time frame.
Can I say to Catherine, is that planning application not live still, because they did break?
No,
That's
signed in July.
That's
why I'm
very much.
That's why I'm surmising.
Gabriel came because he wants to get the next thing through on Bruce skis.
Yeah,
Um,
and they wanted our assurance, or some assurance that we wouldn't be blocking.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what I
So
understood.
they've
Right.
got till next year.
What we can't do, what we can't do you cannot do is predetermine your decision. But what you can do is try and establish what the decision might end up you're going to determine. The other thing was, he was very careful in what he said around the funding envelope that he was operating in and the timeframes. So though they walked away and we all were very congratulative, and I was very grateful for my colleague who sits on the left of me in that, because there was some work done on the foundations of where we got to with that. But I do think that as a Buckinghamshire council, they haven't had a conversation as a Buckinghamshire councillor on that with him, although I know he's had a conversation with the Member of Parliament. But I do think we need to try to understand where we're going with it, because the town council can't, in my opinion, give a green light to anything, although it may want to be positive. I think the emphasis of that meeting was, what will you do with it? And I think it might be worth getting some, if I was the town council, I'd want some clarity about what the intentions were. I think we all left that meeting being, well, I did, I left it listening, being quite impressed that something had come forward, and then wondering what actually was coming forward and where it was.
But I think Steve will agree that's a town council matter, because
there's a planning
it all
issue.
came up.
Chairman, there will be a planning issue.
Eventually, but until we get a planning application.
No, but I
we should
think
not
we need to
comment on
see,
it, should we?
no, we don't, we're not commenting on it, but we need to understand if that, what the intentions are. It's only like pre-application, someone can come to anybody and give a pre-application call.
We're expecting an application imminently, that's as much as we can do.
Well, that clarifies a bit more than what was clarified at the meeting, but
That's what I gathered from the meeting.
I did too. I don't think.
I don't think it,
Gabriel, and he made it clear.
Yeah.
There was an imminent application. And that it-
Please, yeah.
but that, what I'm trying to say
The
is,
funding.
there's an imminent, okay, what I'm trying to say badly is that you have to be careful that meeting took place, and when you're dealing with the application, there may not be that you end up having to deal with it in a way that you have to deal with it, because the influence could be, yeah, I'm not going to go, you understand what I'm trying to be coded around it, probably not very well, but anyway, that's enough on that.
Furrow the brows round the table now.
Yeah.
Very confused.
Thank you, is that it, Robin?
No, that's fine, and as I said, if you've got anything for the Growth and Infrastructure Committee, which tickles my fancy, send it to me.
We're excited about.
Yeah.
I'd look as well. John, question?
Yeah, just one thing to respond to Robin's last point there. Councillor Martin Ted put out a tweet post the other day saying that he was concerned about London exporting its housing need to Buckinghamshire. And I responded and said, well, that's what the south of Buckinghamshire did to the north of Buckinghamshire. Is he against exporting in principle or just when it affects him?
Well, I'll answer that in a political sense. The last time I went to a pre-meeting the Growth and Infrastructure Select Committee, even before the government fell and the new government arose out of the ashes of the previous government, we were going to get 68% of all development in the Buckingham neighbourhood plan towards the north. So one would imagine that the context in which Martin talks about all the issues around green bounce road, grey bounce road, concrete, I don't think any of those terms are mentioned in the MPPF. They are mentioned in his opinions. I think in the end, it should be down to the facts of what actually comes forward and not the opinions about the facts. And I think Town Council dealt with that very well, I felt, in sidestepping the issue until we had all the information ourselves, so we didn't make the same follies as responding in that way. I think the chairman and the vice chairman are planning summed it up very well in our meeting. So in politics, you can say what you want about whatever you want. In the end, the truth always out, doesn't it? So the truth will be somewhere between the two. And I try hard not to respond to him on Twitter because it'll only encourage him.
Any other questions for Robin? No other Shire councillors present. So, in that case, can we move to 82 to receive a report from councillors Cole, Schaefer and Draper? I can't see him around. Councillor Draper attended the prior meeting to Anna and myself, so I don't know what she was going to say tonight. Anya, I can say she was the first of the speakers at the meeting, and the question she asked about this cycling, local cycling and walking infrastructure plan is what funding will be in place for it. There's obviously going to be a bit of funding required to create this county greenway, which will be a spine the whole length of Buckinghamshire, starting down in the south, down in the Colne Valley and going right up through Buckingham and then on towards Brackley. The questions I raised, three questions I raised, pointing out our revised neighbourhood plan is forecasting a population of 25,000 by 2040, which will give the town increased employment requirements. I took into account some good points that have been submitted by residents to Steve and Adam following our BNP public sessions. John Fuller from Buckinghamshire Highways was running the session. I asked him, does the definitive Buckinghamshire Greenway map, as it does not show the proposed Buckingham to Stowe and Silverstone cycleways, it's an error. He said, no, it will be updated as landowners' consent is approved. And as Silverstone Park is a designated employment area for Buckingham, it will be amongst 60 aspirational priorities for the county. The Greenway will also go from Buckingham to our other designated employment area, which is Westcott, going via Claydon House. He acknowledged that is a great distance and that the HS2 construction is also a barrier to travel to Westcott.
Yeah.
Never.
It's not good for hedgehogs.
It looks at the moment like another 10 years of that.
Yeah.
It's that what. My second question was that the Buckingham neighbourhood plan suggested western cycle route heading out to Buckingham alongside the A41 towards Tindwick, which ends to our parish boundary, the Radcliffe roundabout. We need to know what the intentions of Radcliffe, Cumchackmore and Tindwick parish councils is. He noted that and said those parish councils will be consulted. And finally, I raised the lack of an eastern cycle route heading from Buckingham to Milton Keynes,
Mhm.
joining up with the city's redways.
Yeah.
Our parish ends 3 kilometres along the A421 at Thornborough Bridge, and 100 metres along the A422 at Lock Meadow Bridleway. So again, we need to know what Thornborough Parish Council and Mains Morton Parish Council's intention might be. Noted by Mr. Fuller, and he said we should act upon this as it is acknowledged by us that Milton Keynes is a major local
Absolutely.
employer.
Yeah.
So that's my questions and the answers we got. As item 8.3, we discuss and agree a response to the plan. A summary and question list is attached at section A. Are members happy that we follow what I've just told you, what Andrew and myself said?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Robin?
I think it's a good point. Which maybe I missed it, hasn't expressed, and I think it's one of the things we should consider. Is what's going to fund this?
That's what Andrew asked.
Yeah,
That's our first question.
but we should take that up as a separate question outside the consultation, because what we can't.
We can only deal with the consultation.
No.
Michael.
Okay, but I just think that's a worry that it will come out of other things, out of future developments that might be a decision we don't want, but yeah.
If you see the questions, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. They're quite straightforward. The first one, do you support the proposed corridors as being priorities for active travel in the Buckingham and Winslow area?
Yes.
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 Right, that's easy. Who wants to make a note of this? Thank you, Catherine. They've given a list of the proposed corridors. If you consider different corridors to be priorities for new and improved travel, please list them below. They've given us 12 options, which you'll see on Appendix A on page 28.
I think they're all good. I mean,
You happy with all those?
yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Question 2 then, overall, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the network plan that is proposed in the draft Buckinghamshire plan? Strongly agree, neither disagree, or disagree, strongly disagree, don't know. Oh, dear.
Agree.
Again, we could put those 4 questions in there, couldn't we, that we asked at the meeting. Question 3, the Buckinghamshire Greenway, we've set out our vision for the Greenway, a flagship active travel route that will be delivered in phases and eventually run north-south across Buckinghamshire. Doesn't ask a question.
Doesn't ask a question.
No. So, they said you can, yeah, they don't actually ask a question.
No, they don't.
No, and question 4, overall.
Sorry, so question 3, could I suggest that we also add in the idea that it would be good if this greenway interacted with a north-south regular bus route as well?
Yeah.
But this, unfortunately, is only a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan.
I know, but buses help with that.
Yeah, they did say at the meeting that there would be future consultations on buses.
Yeah.
It needs to be integrated with the bus structure.
Yeah.
No, John, don't be sensible.
I think it's a good point.
Yeah, right.
If you're allowed to mention the word bus, just keep saying it.
There should be points for everything said, so you can get a bus somewhere, cycle a bit, and get a bus back.
Or indeed walk, yeah.
Or whatever, or
So
walk.
what is
Yeah,
their question then?
So would that be one of the buses that like goes up west a bit, that you can go on a Tuesday but doesn't come back till Saturday?
Well, but they just, I mean, it's
Yeah, maybe
my
breakfast.
thought there saying, the bus that goes from Northampton through, but.
Members happy to
Yeah, I think
have that?
Yeah.
Good point,
I
Rob.
would suggest that as question 3 isn't a question,
We
question 2 asks, please let us know your reasons for your answer, it might fit better on question 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Question 4, overall, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the Buckinghamshire Greenway vision and objectives? I presume everyone is in agreement with it.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
great plan, it's going to
Yeah.
encourage cycling and walking.
Yeah.
Subject to the points we made at the meeting.
Or question 4.
Just.
Question 4.
Yeah. Could we strongly agree, like,
Yeah.
show a bit of passion here?
I'm just asking, I
Yeah.
want to know.
My bicycle is rusting in the garage, but never mind.
Move those questions we asked from 2 to 4, alternative to that, if everyone's happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Members may make personal responses if they wish, as you know. John?
Yeah, just a last point on question 4 there. I do think it's worth saying that whatever the routes are put in, they need to be accessible to everybody. Because they need to be hard surfaces, so people can go there with their buggies and with their gates, there are accessible gates, and so on. And secondly, there needs to be enough width so that people, walkers, aren't going to be interacting with cyclists, aka mopeds, these days, because they are.
Scooters.
Because that could create accidents as well. So I think width and access is really important to this.
Good point.
Thank you.
Who are.
Could I just go to Lisa, could just have maintenance as well, that's
Well, yeah.
one of the other parishes raised that at the meeting, but lack of maintenance, particularly between Buckingham and Winslow. On the cycleway, and Lisa.
Yeah, thanks. I had my hand up when I think around question 2 or question 3, and I was going to ask about how if Milton Keynes Council has been approached on how they keep their redway clear, because it was an issue that when they were looking at the cycleway between Winslow and Buckingham, that this question came up because they're putting it next to fields and trees, and wind blows trees down as we know. So I don't know if there's been any issues on the cycleway since it's been put in, but going on John's point, access is incredibly important. So I don't know if the Milton Keynes have had any issues since their roadway's been put in.
There certainly have been issues with the Winslow Buckingham one, because farmers obviously have to cut hedges and there's thorns lying and they're not.
I've had broken glass as well.
Yeah,
Somebody saying
that's
it's terrible, broken glass.
How many times?
Manage that.
How many times has one driven to Winslow on a Sunday and seen groups of cyclists in the road, not
Yeah.
in the car, or
Must be a reason.
individual ones? Anyway, Robin.
I think what Milton Keynes does is they've got a very wonderful system over there that automatically have a parish council. They automatically grant them rights, and they also get power of competence. I listen to conversations that some things are moved to parishes. Whether the redways still stay in the integral transport links of Milton Keynes is a good question, but I know they're very proactive in having a new parish council, and they do one. And I was listening to a discussion between parish and councils one day where it comes under the power of competence they get in different areas. There might be something that outside the conversation we need to ask, because it might give us the information on what good practices, because you don't hear, I follow some of the Milton Keynes stuff, and you don't actually ever hear puncture on redway.
Yeah.
You don't hear found milk bottle on redway. You never see that. In fact, they seem to be very well looked after.
That's what I thought I'd ask.
And it might be interesting, because one of the things which the point that everybody raises, we're very good at putting stuff in, and we're not very good at maintaining it after we've done it, and expect that some miracle pot of money will keep it going forever. And it doesn't.
Okay. So Catherine Scott all this down, says.
Just one tiny point. In the other thing about the redways in Milton Keynes, they have those little white Amazon bot things charging around. Does that mean we're going to get those in Buckingham?
Would you like those? I could just see that. We have them with smiley faces on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Martin.
Just one last point, the comparison between the redways and the paths that we've got, especially from here, Winslow and further, is that the redways have their own network where we tend to follow the roads.
Yeah.
We need to have a path which, maybe cuts through all the meandering of the road to get to a point, which is more walker friendly or
that's what the Greenway does.
You're presuming they're going to maintain
it's a spine in the middle of Buckinghamshire, won't follow roads.
That's good then. That's good then.
Yeah. That's what this is all about.
We're in violent agreement.
Brilliant. I'll slip back into my little area here and
I think it was well made, though, Martin. I think it's great that you.
any other questions for Councillor Try?
I think that's brilliant, well made, Martin.
Could we have a hands up in agreement that that is how we reply? That's unanimous, thank you very much.
Can you, outside that, ask the question which, was asked by Lisa about interest in how they maintain the redways and where it comes under?
Yeah,
So
but
it's
members
a
have
good question,
that.
because if it comes under parishes over there,
That's a very good point, but
we don't, we're not automatically going to pick up the maintenance of
No,
something thereafter without the prior agreement. And also, if it's
bless you.
the unitary council that maintains it,
It's not,
we need to know how they maintain it.
Yeah.
'Cause,
definitely.
so that we're forewarned and forearmed.
so it's not just the funding of the civil engineering involved, but the funding of maintenance.
Yeah, no, I mean, what Lisa was
Yeah.
getting at is the real question going forward, if they wouldn't have an asset, if
Yeah.
we just put it in, then it deteriorates.
Thank you. Good point.
Yes, I guess.
Right, everybody, can we move on to 9, updates from representatives on outside bodies, do we have any? Action list, most of it is still awaiting response or reports.
Just one point,
Item,
sorry, Chair. The action list,
yeah, we're on the action list, I'm gonna raise, skate park funding, which is appendix D. John, you might want to talk on that.
well, yeah, I'm not happy with it, but I'm not gonna, there's no point. But I'm concerned looking at the list of section 106 monies, there seems to be more not spent than actually spent. We add up the costs, there's a lot of money that's meant to be there, being provided by the developers. When is it gonna get spent? Because as Robin was highlighting a few minutes ago. And we discovered, of course, with the Stratford Road car park. If it's not spent in the way that it's being designated, you lose it. And I'm just a bit blooming concerned that the Shire Council just seem to go la-di-da-di-da and not worrying about it. And that's the I am. That's a resource that should be invested in our town. It's there for a purpose. Why
That's
is it
what-
not being spent?
That's what appendix B is.
No, I know about the section 106 to do with the skate park. It's all the other monies that are there.
Can I,
That's item 410 on the agenda.
Yeah, that
Well,
that comes later, yeah.
Again on the end of it.
Yeah.
But it is referenced in here.
So are you happy about the skate park, John, now? Or,
I'm not happy about it, but I'm not saying.
Not
Sure.
Robin?
no, I wasn't going to comment on this gate, but I want to comment on the section when
Yeah, please do.
Second one says-
That's item
That's item
14.
14, we're not.
Can we get that?
Can I make a comment then on the skate park, line? Chairman,
What, sorry?
can I make a comment on the skate park
Yeah, please.
line, thanks. It's about the shelter. That they say here, due to resident reported associated antisocial behaviour. So one resident apparently was able to have that much sway that a shelter that
Yeah.
could keep young people dry
Yeah.
in bad weather, one resident was able to have that much sway. And I think that's diabolical because the shelter wasn't just used for drug use and alcohol taking. That's why we supported having it. So I think that is diabolical, I really do, and I think that should be looked into.
Well, we did make the point at the time, if you carry on with that paragraph, it says the police are in favour, but one or some local councillors were not. So we
well, who were the
compromised.
local councils?
Yes,
Were they ward councillors?
the police were always against shelters because that had sides on because they couldn't see in them without getting out of their cars. That was what I heard over 10 years ago. That
Just
is-
to remind you, we are.
I don't care, honestly, that's what I heard over 10 years ago, and if and that's why we said we'll see through sites then. There are alternatives, you don't have to have like blacked out sides, but yeah, I think that should be looked into, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And I think the fact that, thank you, what you said, because the fact that if one person can change that, we need to know who this one person is, because there's
Yep.
lots of things that I need doing in this town. I want
Absolutely.
to find out who this one person is, because if this person's got that much influence, perhaps they ought to get elected
Yeah,
and become a councillor, because we need someone who's that influential to be able to change things in Buckingham.
yeah.
And I don't say that jestingly, because
Mhm.
it's done with complete anonymity. And that area where the actual shelter is now got nothing in it.
Yeah,
And when we originally asked to put that shelter in, and we put it in, and one of them was paid for by the town council, we were told by the police to put it in, because they wanted it to be put in. And whatever, so
Are you sure it's one resident? Because that's not.
well, it says it in
No,
there.
it says due to resident reported
Well,
associated
well,
antisocial behaviour.
that's a resident.
Resident.
No, it doesn't, yeah,
Could be
grammatically,
many
yeah.
residents. So it
It's
could
not,
just be
it's not
one.
well phrased, but
Yeah,
it could be.
Well, according to that, it's one resident. I want to know who this resident is.
It doesn't say a resident, it's
Better be
due
out
to
of
resident
that, which was
reported
It would have to
antisocial
be
It's vague.
behaviour. Anyway,
A or.
vague.
but,
Thank you.
It's not well written.
Mm,
noted. Can we move on from the action list?
okay.
Thank you. Right, we've got the attendance reports from those Buckinghamshire Council committee meetings. North Bucks Area Planning Committee was held
Amazing.
last week. Goodness.
We had one, very interesting.
We have one. Strategic site committees, both cancelled for August and September. Growth infrastructure, housing committee, you've heard Robin is going to. Next couple of days, 26th of September. Transport, Environment and Climate Change Select Committee was held.
There wasn't anything on the agenda that we needed to.
And I just will add, on the 14th of October, there will be the Buckinghamshire Council quarterly planning forum, which both Catherine and myself will be attending online. It's on the Monday morning, which isn't terribly helpful because we have a planning briefing at 2 and the planning committee in the evening, but at least it's happening. I'm just disappointed that after they promised us they'd all be face to face from now on, they've gone back to online. But, right, enforcement, any new breaches? John?
I think the new signage for the nail bar opposite the banking hub on West Street is a bit garish.
Been reported already.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
So be quick then, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else? No. In that case, move on to rolling lists, tree felling applications, updated information. Land grab reports, no change from last report.
Good.
Call-in requests, updated information, and IMO licenses, updated information. Thank you for all that work, Catherine.
Yeah.
I know just to note, but the top 2 licenses have expired on that IMO. Have they not? Did I?
But they don't update their website very often. So they may well have been renewed, but it hasn't crept up yet.
Do you know, they're so flipping lackadaisical.
That has been raised before, that.
Gee, how are we meant to keep on top of things if they,
Yeah.
they update a license and you update this, that goes hand in hand, it's part of the process.
Was updated once a year. It's now a few times a year, but unpredictably. I mean, it's an improvement.
Ish.
All right, thank you very much.
Right, thank you, everybody. Item 14, section 106, quarterly update. Thank you, Catherine, you've done a good job there,
Yeah,
highlighting in
thank
yellow the things we should be looking at. Robin?
Yeah. I am very alarmed. I think, thank you, John, for raising that point. Because one who noses into these things is my nature is. I am believing that we have roughly section 106, it's outstanding, which we need to be working on, which I think we need to take it away and do some granular work on. And I understand that there could be as much as £1.27 million sitting around in section 106 in Buckingham. My work on this, I must say, because I just ask questions around places, which is my nature, is that some of this is in projects that we need to discuss where they are. There's also the issue around that we need to have some long-term discussion about those section 106s, because many of them were the decisions were taken under not the previous town clerk, but the previous town clerk, based upon information that we allocated them to. Now, what I'm worried about is that this is money from developers, and to the best of my knowledge, and I traced all the correspondence back on this, the last time that we discussed these was probably about 2022, and there was correspondence that I'm privy to see, which was sent in 2022, and but that correspondence in 2022, the inference was given that this is correspondence between the two councils. The inference was that there was £1.271359 million in section 106s, and that there may have to be some work done on how that works forward. Now, I think what would be useful, without going into prejudicing anyone in this meeting, I think we need to, once the meeting is closed, I'll talk a little bit more openly about that, because this is money allocated from developers, and I would not wish in 100 years 1 penny of it to ever go back to a developer. That's why I'm not going to be specific in this meeting, but I have done the groundwork on it. I have asked the questions and I've got the information. And I am worried that that is a very large number. I thank John for his antennae around these things. So when we close the meeting, I'll be briefly give you what I feel the situation is. And I think that I do think that members need to be discussing these things. We got it on the agenda. I'm not going to discuss the detail.
I think Steve's going to advise us we can't go into committee.
I'm not going to go into committee. I'm just going to advise you after the meeting.
I don't think we can do that.
Well, if you want to read the correspondence out in the meeting, I don't think
Just
it's
one,
me
Carol,
to.
I think we just said, stop talking,
No.
taking this moment.
Okay.
It's up to members if they want to stay behind to ask for stuff after the meeting's closed. I'd be keen to go before I can't get out because we're flux.
I'm concerned this is being said in public and people are going to think we're going to be hiding behind.
No, what I'm going to suggest is that, so we're not hiding behind any glass doors, Chairman, which I'm trying to get to. Everyone goes, all of a sudden you've got some information I don't know about. We must all be very frightened about it. Is that we agenda an item at the next meeting to discuss the full and frank situation of where we are with that, with an officer's report. And then if that then has to go into the areas of how we allocate that, then has to go to a different committee, because that decision will make a recommendation that that decision go to that committee.
Confidential.
Or confidential, or whatever that can come through. But the figure that I was quoted is the figure I was quoted, and I believe that to be true.
I believe the clerk's working on the SO6 situation with other officers, and perhaps a report from her might be useful to the appropriate committee.
Or should it go to full council? Because
No.
the majority of this money is planning applications which full council have had to approve.
The wish list is maintained by environment.
The environment committee, we do not do it. We might as well just disband all the committees if we
Most
take
of
every
it's
full
for leisure,
council.
which means playgrounds and things, so.
So this is on the agenda, and it's an opportunity for me to speak about section 106.
But we can't act on it, Robin, because it just simply says to receive new information.
But it does give you the right to speak. It's on the
Yeah, no,
agenda.
we're not
And nothing I've said is
Just
undefendable.
people keep, like, stay after the meeting's finished.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's why I thank John for his observations.
What was that less is more thing that 3 women have told you?
Yeah,
I would like to see this aired officially because I'm concerned as well, but I'd like this to take place officially
Yeah.
I agree.
at some stage. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
That's what Robert said, yeah.
yeah, we are in agreement.
For once.
For one. No, we're always in agreement, even if we're not, you know what I mean? We're in agreement that we're not in agreement.
Thank you, Robin. Your signed off has been noted. So, matters to report. Any damage to purpose redundant signage and town access issues and any other urgent matter. John?
Can I say that I reported the overgrown hedge on the corner of the old the road down to the cafe and farm, the Manor Farm, and the bypass. And they cut it back. And I then submitted another street, fixed my street report saying, thank you for doing this, really appreciate this. And I got an email back, which said, good afternoon, Mr. Harvey. Firstly, thank you very much for your kind words. I will forward your thanks on to the relevant team supervisor, as this does not happen very often.
I bet it doesn't.
Or at all. So this will be a boost for the crews and department. So I think what we should do is this goes on to say about he does his best and everything else, of course he does. I think sometimes we should actually say thank you at this point on the agenda, as well as highlight things that haven't been done. I think we should also say it has, and that's a good job, so thank you very much. So just to say on the record here, thank you again to the team that got that cut back, because it makes it a lot easier now getting around that corner when I come back home after having a cup of coffee.
Everyone happy with it? No, I think John makes a very good point. Thank you.
You will recall, we did this 2 months ago to thank them for Holloway Spinney, putting the gates back up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I think
It was much appreciated.
we should always say thank you. It's always good.
They were under a lot of pressure today, crying apparently.
Martin?
Yeah, it's been down for a long time, probably on the list. It's the traffic direction sign opposite WH Smith.
Yeah, got October a week, 10 days ago.
Well, more than
It's
that.
about to be removed for the charter fair anyway,
Yeah.
so hopefully when they put it back, they'll put it back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Only downside of that.
it just looks bad and it's sort of into the road a
To
bit.
start with, it was sticking out in the cross.
It was a bit, yeah.
The downside of that is we'll pay for it.
Someone came, fortunately turned it round a bit, so at least you have 2 lanes running again.
I think I nudged it with my right wheel.
Someone
I should try
highlighted,
run of action.
someone highlighted the appalling state of the bus shelter.
Oh,
That's really interesting, with lots of graffiti. So you responded to it.
Which one's in
The main one here.
the bus station?
Yeah, the bus station.
I think that's,
It needs sorting, really,
Yeah.
it really
We
does.
could put a request through to,
Oh, I think we probably already have.
there's lots have gone through. If you look on the portal, it's got lots of dots on it.
Really.
I reported it again at the weekend because on the Facebook page it was on, and or was it the other day? I'd reported it before that, and it's got lots of dots on it, and I just feel that maybe we should just either employ proper artists or accept the fact that it's never going to be done, because it has been going on throughout the summer. It's just gradually getting more and more graffiti, because it's encouraging people to come back, add more to it.
Yeah.
And there's also the graffiti on the London Road Bridge, which somebody's put on that historic bridge.
Yes, put that in. Copied heritage when I did.
Which I noticed when you're in the
Excellent.
the daily queue, when people are using their sat nav to get through the town and not using the bypass. You can see it there, and I think it is getting a problem, graffiti.
You didn't used to have it,
Sure.
did we?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, I know that there's £904 unspent from the Oddfellows Hall development. That would go a long way to cleaning the bus station, I think.
It's not ours though, is it?
It's not ours, it has to be used in Chandos Park. Lee is having a think about what he needs to replace next.
Could we call the bus stop part of Shandos Park?
No, it's not our bus stop, the county's.
Thank you. I have a matter to raise. It has been reported, fly tipping in Osier Way. The new signs went up 3 or 4 months ago. The Top Angel and Osier Way, and the footpath between them, somebody 2 weekends ago decided to dump a load of stuff. Lots of furniture, and it's probably 2 separate people because they're either side of the path. I did report it on Fix My Street, and they said it was going to be removed the following day. I haven't been up there since, but hopefully it's been done. But it's,
Chairman, I like Janie's point about the signage that raised and the fact that the phrase the oligarch, I think it probably is redundant signage, in the sense that the idea, the wording of it isn't very good, let's be honest. There's a better phraseology you could have used to get that, and when those signs went up, the first ones, I remember them going through a whole load of consultation about, and they were funded from the European Union, the previous signs, and they were a business consultation. We were involved in it.
Exactly.
And everyone commented on it. These signs just gone up in our town with which is emotively crafted. I mean, if a youngster did that in a classroom, they'd probably have to amend it and go back and write something better. You know what I mean? And I think it's offensive. I don't think it's nice at all. And I think Jane's right. I drive around and think Buckingham, we need that sort of signs.
Jane, just tell us, those that don't know, what and where are these signs?
Well, there seems to be a lot of all through the town, but certainly when you come past Castle House and going out and the Stowe Avenue and going out of town, there's a rash of them, which always irritates me. And they just, and I think I must have seen them at the county show, but it says for Buck's sake. And you sort of think, really? But I've no idea,
Have they just gone up, they've gone up since the county show?
No, they've gone up.
They were up the county show, so I imagine there's something over the summertime, somebody's put them up. But I'm not even quite sure what they are, what the message is.
It's the strategy about encouraging people to report fly tipping.
Yeah.
From their cars.
This is the case.
But I think in school, that really should
It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. You know, they're using it for fly tipping, which none of us and it's throwing rubbish on the floor, and it's their policy of littering as well.
I mean, keep it.
But you read that sign, that messaging doesn't tell you what it's for. Unless you've read their other messaging, like John has and I have, you wouldn't know what it's for. So you're presuming that the person throwing the litter on the floor going, oh, well, obviously I've read that sign for Buck's sake. I don't know what that means. Oh, I'll throw this down the floor then. And that's for Buck's sake. You know, and it's just wrong. And I think that when we did those ones before, there's a lot of consultation about them. They were funded to promote the businesses in Buckingham. Those signs went down, which were put up there to promote Buckingham businesses and the trade and everything. They've gone. No discussion about why they were going. And these signs have been put up because it's a one size fits all Buckinghamshire.
And we had, I remember when they went up, there was this group, Mike Smith was leading it, and I was on it. Something to do with Buckingham.
And there was a lot of work.
It's a really good thing. And I remember coming through somewhere like Gloucester and saying, it has really good signs. And I came into the group and said, they've got some really good signs. So I do feel slightly guilty because I don't know what happened then when we came, there was we came up with some really nice signs about the secret parts of Buckingham and things like that. And they made sense to Buckingham. But this one, I mean, I love the idea. It's all about being environmentally friendly, but
you can't.
It's not very funny.
Can you, Jane?
I mean, Jane, thank you, you've raised it in the right place. I mean, if members consider it to be offensive, then we can make a complaint and ask them to do the.
Yeah.
The other thing
Is that a general opinion?
Relevant to us.
All those in favour? That's everybody's favour.
Just on the other side of it, when you may not be aware of this, other members who've been on the events committee will know that every time we put something up on a signpost, we have to go and pay to have them. We have to have them tested to make sure that they've actually can stand the Christmas lights. We are not, and we have to apply rules, and we have to get firms in testing to make sure that we can put the Christmas decorations on them. Because
And the hanging
bar.
We have to know the weight of the hanging bar.
And I've never seen any report that they tested these signposts to make sure they did. And if they did use our testing for some of these signposts, well, it's to contribute to the cost of our test. But I do think that there's a whole series of questions around this information.
But anyway, we are going to report. Thank you. If no one has any others, date of next meeting, Monday, 14th of October, following interim. So I had no items of information, I think. And date of next meeting, 14th of October, with which we close the meeting at